Better, huh? No, okay. First question that was asked was, what should Cancun deliver to the sector to enable set up its commitments? Our discussion basically went around two things. Number one, the definition of standards, indicators that everybody, every actor that has an impact on the environment has to work for. You know, standards that are the same for everybody with impact to the environment. It was mentioned during the morning, and we think that is the starting point for everything. Companies, different sectors, they have to know what are their commitments and what type of indicators they're going to be measured for. Number two, government should lead an overall action as a project leader of this big initiative. We discussed that most of the actors, most of the companies here actually know what is going on with the environment and the impact that these negative things are having on our business and on our lives. But it seems that there are a lot of companies, a lot of organizations doing their own thing. You know, companies doing one thing, government other. We need an actor that actually leads the overall action, that integrates what everybody is doing from their own sector. So we think government should play that role. They should provide R&D leadership, you know, for the new technologies, for friendly fuel, or fuel that doesn't use fossil. They should provide that leadership. They should also assign specific roles for the different groups that have impact on the environment, including for their own. Government also has to have a role specifically designed. They also should provide incentives to encourage use of environmental friendly fuel and technologies. It was mentioned during the panel that not all the countries that are represented here have the same development stage. Some of us come from developing countries where companies need to expend more money than they should because the normal services are not provided by government. Electricity is one of them. So if in addition to that, companies need to invest more, that initial investment, to implement technologies that are friendly to the environment, then it becomes a competitive issue for the companies in the international markets. And finally, in this part, to create a fund, a general fund, we would suggest that for mitigation and adaptation. And that is taking into account, you know, developing and poor countries that sometimes they don't have that impact over the environment, but they actually are suffering the results, the negative results, and they don't have the money to face those results. So that was our comments with regard to the first issue. The second, what are the specific policy instruments that countries can put in place? Number one, we think that we should define how the indicators will be accomplished. Those indicators established, for example, at the Cancun meeting, how they will be accomplished at a country level. There should be, we think, a guide that is inserted in the national development plans at every level that help countries actually implement those indicators. The second, to create a regulatory body, to call it some way, that actually follow up on the commitment for every sector, including the commitment of the government. And finally, we think there should be coherence. I mean, if the government is going to play that leadership role, obviously they have to start by complying with the different indicators that are set up for everybody. The number three, what is the, I think I'm sorry, I left one important. aspect of number 2. No. And number 3, what is the commitment of the sector? I think that is very difficult. I think the panelists, a few minutes, maybe an hour ago, they have a pretty tough time trying to answer that question. We went only to say that goals, specific goals, clear goals, should be established in terms of emission, water savings, and the rest. Those goals, we didn't go up to say 20% or 25%, but we know that there should be goals established. And the second is, and this is important, to pass from being corporate compliant. Many of the companies represented here already comply with many of these things that are being discussed. Pass from that stage to actually have an influence on the whole supply chain, and this was also mentioned over the discussion in the panel. So that's basically, thank you.